As just seen in the kickoff video, change is the new normal, and all of us, people and businesses, need to find our way to survive and thrive in the new normal. We are all already users of cloud, whether we step out for a walk and we count our steps and heart rate on a Fitbit. We can order lunch on Zomato and listen to music on Spotify. Whether it's trawling through social media or catching up on blockbusters on Netflix, we've come to expect on-demand availability of content without having to worry about data storage or bandwidth issues. Even our ability to meet today via video streaming. All these products and services we are consuming today wouldn't have been possible without the cloud. Accessing information wherever you want, whenever you want it, or harnessing the power of data at your fingertips. Cloud computing has transformed the business landscape, supercharging productivity and developing new ways of storing and using data. But what does it mean for the future of your business, and how can you use the cloud to reinvent your business? That is the question that we will attempt to provide several insights to. A very good day to everyone here, and thank you for joining us for today's event. My name is Simone Heng, and I'll be your host for today. Organized by Accenture, the Vision to Value event brings together experts and industry leaders from across the globe to share their insights into developing smart ideas built on the power of the cloud. First up, we kick things off with a session on embracing the change and reinventing businesses for profitable growth, where we will be discussing the 6 signals of business change that are critical for organizations to understand in order to shape their future to profitable growth. Next, we delve into the possibilities of a cloud-enabled future in our keynote presentation, The Future of Cloud, a Continuum of Opportunities session. We'll go beyond migration and talk about becoming cloud continuum competitors. This is followed by the Growing and Innovating in the Cloud panel discussion, where we will hear the companies and Accenture experts on how the cloud is being used and the keys to its success. As you will hear, the benefits of cloud are many. However, risk and security factors are always the pain points for executives in cloud transformation. So we will be exploring this area further in the Trending in Cloud Mitigating Risks and Security Threats session. To round off the event, we will be having a fireside chat to understand more about a cloud transformation journey and why it's important across the C-suite beyond the CTO. We've got an action-packed event lined up for you, so let's get to it. First up, embracing the change and reinventing businesses for profitable growth. Accenture's New Business Futures research highlight the signals of business change that are reshaping organizations globally. Please join me in welcoming Valentine de Miguel, Strategy and Consulting Lead for Growth Markets at Accenture, who discuss some of the signals to help business leaders embrace change and find new ways to grow.
Okay, thank you, Simone. Good day to everyone. I'm delighted to be here to start us off to our first panel around the signals of change at this Visions to Value event. And probably when we talk about change, I think we all draw a line in the sand in the month of March 2020. Those were 31 days that changed the world as we knew it. 31 days that I would say even the world's most brilliant leaders failed to anticipate. You may remember that March opened in a year 11 of the largest economic expansions since World War II. And in fact, if I recall well, 2 weeks earlier, the Dow Jones Index had reached a record high. And even 5 weeks before that, as you may recall, the globe's most preeminent business and government leaders had gathered at Davos to welcome in a promising 2020. And then the collapse. COVID outbreaks mounted. And on March 11, the Director General of the World Health Organization declared a global pandemic. As of March 31st, there were almost 1 million confirmed cases of COVID-19 globally, and more than 50,000 people had died. In 31 days, just in the US, 10 million people had lost their jobs, and the largest 500 US companies had lost $3 trillion in value. And yes, it happened that fast, 31 days. The economic fallout of COVID reaching into every corner of the globe has been a wake-up call. Learning lessons from the past is no longer enough. We need to anticipate the signals of the future and to use every tool and technology at our disposal to become much more predictive and certainly less locked into the strategies that are probably based on patterns of the past. In the last 18 months, business models have been reinvented at speed. Supply chains have been restructured. And I would say that our lives have been turned upside down. Yet with it, I think there is a silver lining. Out of crisis, a new wall of opportunities is emerging. So the question is, how do we capitalize on this new momentum? How do we accelerate the innovation we have tapped? How do we ultimately optimize for the new global reality? So in this context, Accenture has done a piece of research called Business Futures 2021, Signals of Change. Business Futures is Accenture's structured approach to identify signals of business change that are most critical for organizations to understand in order to shape successful futures. The report highlights the signals that are reshaping organizations globally. It's based on a variety of research methods that includes economic modeling and data science, crowdsourced input from more than 400 researchers around the globe, and from 2,000 Accenture managing directors, interviews and workshops with many experts in different fields, as well as a survey of more than 2,600 C-level executives around the world. But what's striking, and probably yet not surprising, is that most business leaders don't feel equipped to make sound decisions as we emerge out of the pandemic and into an unsettled future. Actually, only 6% of the executives we surveyed globally are confident in their ability to foresee and respond to future events. Business Futures steps into this critical void with radar signals to provide decision makers with guidance through the post-COVID uncertainty and a peek into the future. Business Futures 2021 includes a deep dive into six signals that have been identified and commented on in the video that we have just watched, and they all present opportunities and incentives to embrace change and find new ways to grow. And today we are privileged to have the opportunity to comment on some of these signals with Envision, a company that, in my view, epitomizes success in this new environment. People have always known Envision for being one of the top 3 global wind turbine manufacturers, but Envision is today much more than that. Today, Envision is a global leader in the digital technology, batteries, and sustainability practices amongst its key businesses. An amazing journey that has put Envision in an enviable position also for future success. And today we are lucky to have Sylvie Ozil with us, representing Envision. Sylvie is currently International President of Envision Digital, having been a CEO and COO of global multinationals in the past in different sectors. Good morning, Sylvie, and thanks a lot for joining us today.
Thank you very much for having me. Good morning, good afternoon, and in the full spirit of disclosure, I happen to have spent 20 years with Accenture. So we are very much friends and families.
Absolutely, one of those multinationals. So Sylvie, for over a year and a half, the world, as you know well, has been responding and adapting to live with the health crisis. What are the effects and impact of the pandemic for you and your business?
So if you look at Envision, as you said, we've got diverse activities. So in a nutshell, it depended on the activities, but overall the impact was pretty minimal. Digital, we were always very global, internally as well as in terms of interactions with our clients. We were leveraging digital very much. So for us, it was really like no impact, honestly. For energy, which is the turbine business you mentioned, we could reopen our China factories pretty early. So we suffered from global supply chain challenges, mostly on the cost side, to be honest, even more than really delays, and other problems. But we could actually fulfill our installation obligations and delivery obligations. The most impacted part of the business was AESC, which is our EV battery business, because people stopped buying cars. Cars in general and EVs among other cars. And so we had to flex down temporarily our production capacity, obviously. Then funny enough, Formula E, our racing team, Envision Virgin Racing, was converted into digital games, into actually a digital race because they couldn't race physically anymore. And a big impact was one of our two pilots had a poor Wi-Fi at home. So he was underperforming because of a poor connection, which was a side effect of COVID, but still we recovered pretty well. And now we are racing physically again in Berlin very soon, actually. Last activity, investment fund in California was not impacted. As you have seen, a lot of people were actually actively investing in startups and even IPOing and creating SPACs and some during the pandemic. So it was not impacted. But last comment I would make is I was very impressed by how the founder reacted to COVID. We were together in February in Japan for a board of the battery business. And Lei, the founder of Envision, was showing me on his phone pictures about the new factory he was building to produce masks, face masks. And the inventory he was building in the US and Europe with the mask, stocks. And I was like in February 2020, exactly as you said, I was very blind. I was like, why is he so fascinated about producing masks? What's the point? And over the next 6 months, I would become the global chief mask officer to donate for free 6 million masks over 6 months to various organizations and companies to keep the light on. Healthcare systems, companies in energy, in transportation, and so on, in water supply and waste management. And so, we were very proud we could do that. And it was really embodying the vision, the reactivity, and the yes, we can do it here and now, us to, make a better future for everybody type of mindset, which was really impressive. And now the factory shut down and everything is stopped and finished because mask supply is no more such an issue. But I think it was a nice illustration of the philosophy of the group.
Absolutely, and an amazing story reflective of your responsible business attitude. Thanks for sharing. Yeah. So Sylvie, in the business futures research, as you know, one of the 6 key signals of change is around sustainable purpose. And I know this is an area that Envision is excelling at as a global green tech company. With your experience in this space, what would be your advice or lessons learned from your experience for other leaders on how they could balance their bottom line as well as their intention to become a responsible business? And perhaps from a global technology leader, how can technology help to close the gap between climate talk and action?
Yeah, so the vision of the group was always addressing the sustainability challenge, solving the sustainability challenge for mankind, which is obviously very ambitious. And our positioning is really to be the digital and industrial technology partner for organizations to reach net zero. And so what we believe is a Malthusian way out of the climate crisis is not sustainable, it's not realistic. Mankind is about progress, it's about consumption, pushing the envelope, pushing the borders, and hoping we can just hold our breath and navigate through climate change is not realistic. If you look at COVID, it only reduced emissions by less than 20%, literally stopping all economy and moves around the globe. So just Malthusianism is not going to get us through the challenge. So what we have been developing successively in terms of technology answer to the sustainability challenge was renewable energy, which is all about technology by design, because unlike oil or gas or natural resources, which prices are governed by demand, supply, and markets and trading laws and OPEC and so on. In the case of renewable energy, the prices are going down and down and down every year. They really follow a Moore law. It's really a technology-driven type of energy, which leads us today with solar to have the cheapest energy mankind ever could produce, available in a very wide supply, more and more with even offshore and floating, pushing the boundaries of natural resources. So really, this renewable technology is one way to provide cheap, green, renewable electricity at a super cost-competitive cost and price for everybody. Then we always were into AIoT, which means we always coupled industrial with digital to maximize production and optimize it. Then we went into batteries to support electrification of transportation, obviously, with electromobility, but not only, also to provide flexibility and a buffer between supply of renewable energy, which is not controllable, and demand, and to provide virtual digital grid capacity to avoid the shock on the grid of renewable energy, which is not commendable and programmable, and to allow this flexibility between supply and demand. So that was wind, AIoT softwares, and batteries. And now we are really developing an additional dimension to industrial and digital, which is regulation, traceability, certification, and carbon finance. Because more and more, the topic is to track your emissions in real time, to abate what you can and offset what you cannot avoid, and do that with a clear line of sight between supply and demand in a very credible way, a very impacting and additional way. And we believe in this environment of certifying the green origin of your energy, tracking your emissions real time, offsetting in a credible, useful way, and not greenwashing at the end of the quarter or at the end of the year. Our technologies of real-time AI and IoT are a critical answer. And when it comes, for instance, to green hydrogen, on which we work a lot those days, it's all about certification of origin of this green hydrogen and monetization via the right carbon credits, because you can actually demonstrate the emissions you're avoiding. So it's all very data intensive, I would say.
Absolutely. That's such a hot topic. So Sylvie, Envision is clearly a global company with a very clear vision of the future. And just in the batteries space, you recently announced, and it's been very much publicized in the media, a series of plans to build a 2.4 billion EV battery plant in northern France, another one in partnership with Nissan in the UK. And you already have 3 battery manufacturing bases in Japan, the United States, and the UK, and at a 4th production and R&D base that went into operations, from what I've heard, at the beginning of 2020 in Wuxi, China. So your business is a living example of our signals of change, especially around how leading companies think global with this clear vision from the central, from your founder and the team, and act local. But can you share with us the evolution, the fantastic journey of Envision from a wind turbine manufacturer to a global technology leader, and with such a diverse business and locations worldwide? In this journey, how you are responding to change and enabling decision-making to your people?
Yes, so as you said, the company has been forming through different activities, always following one logic, which is this technology for net zero. So there is always a clear logic in our strategic development, even if we get into very diverse areas, as you described, from wind turbine to batteries to AIoT software. And so the technology is very founder-driven. So we are like the Apple, Amazon, Alibaba, Tesla, Facebook, and so on. We are very much like the company of one man, to be honest, one man's vision. But what's specific is there is a clear logic, as I was saying, a clear strategic logic. He's very transparent on his strategic thinking. And very inclusive in sharing his view and discussing it. So we've got big strategy meetings where we are discussing the next directions we are taking. And what's impressive is this transparency, inclusiveness, and speed of decision making. But to be honest, we are not delegating so much decisions. We are sharing the logic and the vision and getting all together. But it's very like founder driven, to be honest. And I think this type of big evolutions at that speed of transforming the company from wind turbine to software to batteries, now more and more to real-time global tracking for companies, partnering with companies to make them net zero, cannot be achieved if you are so decentralized. You know, you need one consistent vision, but you need to share it efficiently with the whole organization for people to actually understand, align, and contribute.
Yeah, I agree, Sylvie. It's not unusual in those stages of development of our organization globally. Perhaps I think we have time for one more question, if I may, Sylvie. Being a leader, as you have shared with us, in a new and important field like green tech and some others, how does Envision continuously innovate? And you have described somehow the leadership style of the founder, but what's the role that innovation has played, and how you have somehow learned from the future, which is another of the signals that we have highlighted, how you have learned from the future, anticipating what was coming, like in the example of the masks or the batteries or AIoT and so many others.
Yes, so two things. First, we listen a lot to our clients, obviously, and the company is very good at detecting early signals in the more early adopting ecosystems, I would say. So the mask example came from China because China saw the COVID issue faster, and of course they were first impacted, and they took measures such as obligation to wear masks earlier. So let's say saw it coming from China, but he saw coming a lot of things from many places. So we now develop all our solar innovation in California because it was the earliest ecosystem with the best skills, the early adopting clients, the best technologies. And now we are complementing this center with now Asia, where floating, for instance, is adopted very quickly. Wind was all developed in North Europe, between Norway, Denmark, and Hamburg in Germany, and now complemented with centers in the US, in Colorado and Texas, and in China. Smart City, Smart Nation was really piloted, smart building in Singapore. Singapore being extremely aggressive in terms of adopting latest technologies for better efficiency of infrastructures. EV electromobility is really, Europe is leapfrogging the world. It's really the place where it's happening. So our smart grid and EV charging, smart charging center of excellence is in between Paris and Munich in Europe. So we are very good at detecting where the first signals are, where you can find the early adopters, the best technologies, the best skills, and actually create competency centers who can support the world based on those early innovations where the change is happening, where the action is. And that's why I was saying we were not so impacted by COVID, because we are really used to working in this global network type of environments where we are sourcing basically the skills and the technologies from where they are actually piloted and developed.
Thanks so much, Sylvie. And it's an amazing story of building a global leader in the digital technology sustainability space. Thank you for sharing the highlight with us. That's been a real pleasure.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. And now I can't wait to listen to Karthik on the future of cloud.
Thank you, Valentine, for that insight into the business futures research. Let us now dig deeper into the cloud and how cloud technology is transforming how businesses interact with customers, partners, and employees. It's changing how they make and market their products, services, and experiences, how they build and operate their IT systems. Most importantly, cloud is reimagining the role of data. For our keynote presentation, Karthik Narain, Global Lead for Accenture Cloud First, will dive into details of how businesses can use cloud to create a seamless technology and capability foundation that best serves their business needs now and into the future.
Whether it's a technology first, a fashion first, a science first, or a first for us all. Whatever you hope to achieve for your business, Cloud First helps you get to value first. Let there be change. Accenture.
Hello everyone, I'm Karthik Narain, Global Lead for Cloud First at Accenture. I'm glad to be here to talk about the Cloud Continuum and the opportunities it unlocks to help organizations bridge from vision to value. Every organization's resilience has been tested over the last year or so, more than at any other time in recent history. For all of us, change is the new normal. It's why so many companies are migrating applications and reimagining their businesses on the cloud. Businesses today are changing while their entire industry is in flux. It's a bit like a ship rebuilding its engine and retraining its crew while somehow maintaining its speed and course through a ferocious storm. A massive transition is underway. Almost every company has some presence in the cloud today. We surveyed over 4,000 global business and IT leaders across 16 industries and 25 countries. More than 1,000 respondents of that were in APAC. Over the next 3 to 5 years, more than 2/3 of workloads will shift to the cloud. Around 1/3 of companies will move more than 75% of their workloads into the cloud. But many companies are still thinking about cloud migration as a one-time cost-saving activity. This mindset puts them at a competitive disadvantage, according to our market-defining Cloud Continuum research. What we learned is tapping into cloud for just cost savings and efficiency is limiting for any company trying to run a business in this new normal. To remain competitive, companies need to be ready to operate in the cloud. They need new structures, processes, people, and technology to support the ever-changing needs of business. Essentially, cloud is a commitment to permanent reinvention. In the past, when people said cloud, they generally meant public cloud. Today, and going forward, when we say cloud, we mean the cloud continuum. The cloud is no longer a single technology. It's a dynamic continuum of capabilities from public through edge and everything in between, seamlessly connected by cloud-first networks. Innovations that used to only be in the public cloud can now be found in multiple locations and multiple destinations. Rather than treating each of these locations as silos, companies will realize more value if they treat them as a seamless continuum of capabilities that they can choose from to meet ever-changing business needs. Whether the goal is to deploy ultra-efficient processes, personalize workforce and talent development, or offer captivating new customer experiences. The cloud is also not a static destination in a technology journey. It's not a place you get to and then you're done. Rather, the cloud continuum is a launchpad for innovation. It's the new operating system for the future enterprise. Why is this? Because the cloud of today is always changing. It's where many of the world's breakthrough innovation are happening. Harnessing those innovations require a commitment to permanent reinvention, supported by advanced cloud continuum practices, which we identify in this research. Companies that use cloud as a continuum and commit to permanent reinvention are actually closing the gap between what the business needs and what technology can do. They think beyond migration. They envision their journey as a continuum from on-premise to cloud migration to growing and innovating with the cloud. And they extend the continuum vision to their entire technology stack, from infrastructure to network to their applications and beyond, creating one seamless technology and capability foundation for the future that best serves their business needs, with supporting practices and frameworks needed to truly unlock value. Organizations like these use cloud as their future operating model. And we call these organizations the Continuum competitors. Our research reveals that only a select few organizations fall into this category of Continuum competitors. Only around 13% of the respondents in our survey are using the full potential of cloud in its various forms to transform their day-to-day business operations, carry out knowledge work, and modernize their application stack to meet the ever-changing business needs. This small cohort of companies are thriving, even during a time of unprecedented global disruption. They use cloud to differentiate themselves from competitors and are also much better positioned to withstand any future shocks. Our research actually confirmed that companies don't have to be so-called digital natives to move quickly and effectively in the space. It's more about how you approach and leverage cloud, and whether you have a clear business vision and consistent leadership engagement that differentiates your organization. Cloud continuum competitors outpace their peers on many fronts. They outpace them in terms of how they interact with customers, partners, and employees, how they make and market their products, services, and experience, how they build and operate their IT systems, and how they reimagine the role of data and compute. Continuum competitors aren't driven primarily by cost savings, though they end up achieving greater cost reduction than other organizations as they are focused on business outcomes. One organization may be very operationally focused, another focused on sustainability goals. The key is that continuum competitors apply a broader set of measures to define and monitor success. They are 2 to 3 times more likely than their peers to automate their supply chain and re-engineer their knowledge work. In APAC, and more specifically in China, we actually observed that continuum competitors realize almost 14 times better outcomes with cloud compared to about 3 times globally, because they pursued much wider range of objectives. They set more ambitious goals and realized greater value across the board. About 97% of the continuum competitors in APAC and China used cloud to enhance collaboration among employees and made their work interesting and analytical by reducing rote task and maintenance work. So what challenges prevent other companies from doing the same? One of the top pain points of cloud adoption across all regions, including APAC, is complexity. Navigating legacy systems, establishing new business and operating models, evolving architectures, and so on, are the complexities that they face. Cyber risk is another constant theme. Cyber security management in the cloud gets better every day, with cloud service providers now providing more robust security capabilities than anything achievable on-premise. But many companies still worry about their data in the cloud. You will hear more on this topic in our upcoming sessions. Another top concern is compliance with regulations. All these challenges keep many organizations from rapidly expanding cloud adoption and using the Continuum to their advantage. Cloud is not just a technology change. It's a business change and a human change. Continuum competitors know this. They address the technology, business, and human dimensions of cloud. Through our in-depth research of Continuum competitors, we have identified 4 keys to realize success, and this is applicable to any organization. The first key is to know where you want the Continuum to take you. To achieve the full potential of your enterprise and cloud, it's important to develop a clear business vision along with an understanding of how the cloud Continuum can help you reach those future aspirations. Take IKEA, the name synonymous with ready-to-assemble furnitures globally. When the pandemic fueled an online shopping frenzy, they had an unprecedented volume of orders they needed to fulfill. Imagine having Black Friday type volumes every single day. Thankfully, IKEA had started laying the cloud foundation and their digital transformation journey years earlier. IKEA was able to instantly transform their technology infrastructure to manage large web scale volumes and online orders. They were able to rapidly convert closed stores into fulfillment centers and enable contactless click and connect services. They not only leverage cloud for greater elasticity, but also for innovation. Thanks to cloud, they were able to have a data analytics and AI revolution, embedding algorithms into everything they did. The second key is to establish cloud practices and support and augment your technology investments. Technology improvements on the cloud can be extreme, and the pace has to be incredibly fast. The Cloud Continuum is a place that offers continuous breakthroughs in compute, performance, latency, and innovation. How can businesses keep up? We all need new mindsets and practices to bring the rest of our organization, people, and processes along for the ride. Agility is the most critical mindset to being a Continuum competitor. It's what enables us to continuously set goals, transform talent, and understand and experiment with new technologies. The third key to being a Continuum competitor is to focus on delivering exceptional experience. Continuum competitors prioritize their investment in one area above all else, and that is experience. They know experience is going to be everything. They use a combination of human-centered design and cloud-based technologies such as edge computing to rethink experience and push it closer to where their customers, partners, and their employees engage. They embrace an experience mindset throughout the organization, from products and services to employee experience. For example, they use the cloud to make work more interesting and data-driven by reducing manual tasks and maintenance work. Imagine how your coffee barista, augmented by AI, could offer you a better, more personalized customer experience. That's what Starbucks, one of the Continuum competitor, is doing. And the fourth key is to secure continuous leadership commitment. The cloud Continuum offers practically unlimited choices, perhaps too many choices. In fact, sometimes cloud's abundance can lead to organizations to paralysis. That's why continuous leadership engagement is so critical for the success in this journey. Leadership needs to establish clear business objectives, set appropriate risk levels, and support a culture of agility. Let me share the story of a Continuum competitor that realized substantial gains by viewing cloud as a launchpad for innovation. Carlsberg, the Danish brewer, needed to grow its business. It faced rising costs and evolving customer tastes. Carlsberg's leaders recognized that to deal with disruption and position the company for future growth, it needed to transform its business into a digital business enabled by the cloud. Carlsberg transitioned 100% of their workload to the cloud. They cut operational costs by a third and invested those savings into innovation and future growth. Carlsberg's cloud-enabled innovations include an application transformation to reduce technology costs and optimize their entire landscape to run efficiently on the cloud. A service delivery transformation with a new look service desk augmented with innovation and intelligent tools. A connected bar that features a beer keg with IoT sensors to gauge real-time consumption, allowing them to fine-tune their marketing campaigns. A smart brewery that uses IoT sensors to identify production issues and automate maintenance. And all this was accompanied by a wholesale talent transformation. Now they can quickly innovate and experiment. Their network capacity is now 10 times what it was. And they can launch new initiatives and campaigns in hours rather than months. Continuum competitors like Carlsberg are ahead of the pack. And we think they will gain even more advantage over time. We believe the cloud choices companies make today will determine their success over the next 3 to 5 years. Organizations now must ask themselves how they can use the cloud continuum to position themselves for sustained growth into the future. By revealing the hallmarks of continuum competitors, we hope it helps every business operate as a cloud-first enterprise leveraging the continuum, to become more customer-obsessed by putting experience first, to withstand the future shocks, ignite growth, and emerge as leaders within their industries. The cloud continuum is here. Now, it's up to every business to harness it. Thank you.
Thank you, Karthik. Now, what stood out most for me from Karthik's presentation was the fact that over the next 3 to 5 years, around a third of companies will move more than 75% of their workloads into the cloud. More than that, the impact is across the entire spectrum of industries, with different organizations using the cloud for different needs. For example, healthcare providers can now deliver more personalized treatments for patients using the cloud. Meanwhile, financial services companies are using the cloud to power real-time fraud detection and prevention. Joining us in our panel today are Accenture experts and leaders from Petronas and Macquarie Bank, who are well into their journey in the cloud continuum. I'd like to now turn it over to Romain Groslo, Accenture Cloud First Sales and Solution Lead for the Asia Pacific, Middle East and Africa region, who'll facilitate our panel discussion. Romain, over to you.
Thank you, Simone, and hello everyone. I'm Romain Groslo, Accenture Cloud First Sales and Solution Lead for APAC. Thank you very much for joining us today for the panel discussion, part of our Cloud First event. I'm delighted to be here with you. You've just heard Karthik Narain describing the cloud continuum and the key success criteria to tackle the cloud agenda as a mean to drive innovation in an ever-changing world. And I'd like to start reflecting on this with a quote from Jeff Bezos, which is almost 10 years old, but so relevant even today. He said, in today's era of volatility, there is no other way but to reinvent. And the only sustainable advantage you can have over others is agility, because nothing else is sustainable. Everything you create, someone will replicate. Cloud Continuum is the engine to drive this agility. Today, we've assembled a great panel of senior leaders who will bring to light the strategies and practices adopted by their organization on their cloud journey as they reinvent their businesses in the cloud. This panel discussion will also bring to life how they're growing and innovating their businesses and evolving their cloud strategy to deliver on their unique set of priorities. So now I'd like to welcome the senior leaders on our panel today. They will share some unique insights on what's been shared so far and how they're using the power of cloud in their industry and their organization. We're delighted to have you with us today, and we have the following leaders. So Richard Healy, CIO of Macquarie Bank. Good afternoon. We have Adrian Askew, the Chief Digital Officer of Petronas. Good afternoon, Adrian. And we have Ryoji Sekido, our Technology Lead and Cloud First Lead for Accenture in APAC.
Hello, everybody.
Thank you. Before we dive into the discussion, just a reminder for everyone that you can post your question in the Q&A box, and we'll try to find them later to answer them. So we're going to deep dive, and we're going to start with a piece around how cloud is basically a launch pad for innovations and new ways of operating. The cloud continuum competitors that you've just heard from Karthik understand that the cloud is really this continuum of capabilities and opportunities and options that can be designed to meet the ever-changing needs of the businesses. So if I may start with you, Sekido-san, now. What are you really seeing in the marketplace today with clients looking to transform their businesses with cloud?
Thank you, Romain. Hi, everybody again. Let me start the conversation sharing my thought anyway. From my conversation with the client for last 12 months, firstly, most of the clients said like the final goal of cloud journey is their business transformation and reinvention. This is the kind of common word we hear from the market. But having said that, one of the common questions that I get asked always that is, in order to transform or reinvent their business at the end, whether they should start from migration of the existing legacy and transform and to achieve the aspiration, or they need to build a new system from scratch. This is a kind of fundamental question I receive already. Of course, that there is no one-size-all-fit approach. So we have many cases in the market. So let me share some example. The firstly, one of the global consumer goods company, they're actually producing the beauty cosmetic product. They start from migration from existing SAP system and also some system to the cloud first. And then they're going to build a new coupled data model on the cloud by extracting the old data from legacy to support the new kind of customer experience, more intimacy to the client, or more like a dynamic product development or hyper-personalized product development. So that's one of the cases we have, starting from migration. On the other hand, some of the company, they have been building system from scratch in order to build their, achieve their aspiration. So one of the large regional bank in my country, in Japan, they actually developed a full cloud native core banking system from scratch. And recently they deployed a system in the production. That their business approach aspiration, they need to reinvent their retail banking business, more real-time analytics or dynamic pricing, and also hyper-personalization, or even changing a traditional B2C model to more B2B2X model by leveraging the older system partner services. So that's their aspiration. And then they have concluded that the existing application and data model of the legacy could not support their business aspiration. That's why they decided the system building from scratch. But looking at the both cases, the one of the important things we need to remember that this is, by the way, Karthik mentioned about in their speech, is that any cloud journey should be anchored in a clear business vision. This is very important. And also the clear understanding of how technology and cloud could reinvent their business. So without this, they cannot achieve the aspiration. So this is a kind of a key principle, I believe, any cloud transformation moving forward. So now back to the Romain.
Thank you very much, Sekido-san. And I think what came clear was really about having a clear business vision. And talking about clear business vision, Macquarie Bank in Australia set the goal of being a leading digital bank. And so Richard, you're looking at using digital technologies to meet this objective of being a leading digital bank in Australia. Can you share a little bit more about your vision and how the technology-led enterprise transformation that you're undergoing, and as well, how does the power of cloud, data, and AI come together to bring the desired customer experiences to life?
Yeah, and thank you for inviting me, first of all, for this conversation. So I'm going to take us back in time a little bit. So in 2014, we decided we would really start a cycle of heavy investment in technology, and that continues to today and will continue. The reason being is we leading digital bank. And so we knew that we had to evolve pretty much everything that we had. So what did that mean for us? So initially we had to build a new core banking platform that had to support real-time banking at its core. We also needed a new origination platform. We needed a new CRM system. We needed a new payment system, and we needed a new data harbor and data facilities. So we decided on that very heavy investment cycle. And some of that was pre-cloud. So I'll probably come back to that in a moment. So, but we also knew that we also needed to change the way we worked. So we also decided to go all in on enterprise agile. So I represent Macquarie BFS, which is the retail banking arm in Australia. So we have over 1,000 technologists operating under enterprise agile with a full DevOps model. So that's quite an interesting piece. But at the heart of our journey now is cloud, and that's the bit that we're interested in today, I'm sure. So our stated ambition move our entire estate to public cloud by the end of this financial year. So that's next March. We will get really close to completing that task. There's a couple of things we won't do for some business reasons, but we'll get really close. What drove our decision? So it wasn't cost. It wasn't cost. In fact, cost has not come into this conversation. Why we did it was agility, resilience, obsolescence, security, and innovation. Cost is not in those top 5. It might be the 6th, but it's not in those top 5. We utilize AWS and Google as our 2 cloud providers. And what we're trying to do is trying to build a seamless, personalized experience at high speed for our customers. Key to any customer in any bank is obviously trust. Trust is the key to any banking relationship with a client. Key to that, of course, is security. So I mentioned security being one of those drivers of moving to cloud, and that was a clear reason that we did so. And in 2019, we launched Macquarie Authenticator, which is our sort of market-leading security app that uses real-time verification for customer transactions, uses push notifications, a lot of cloud technology that we wouldn't have necessarily had on-prem to deliver that service. So we've invested really heavily on the data side, because you mentioned data. Of course, we've spent a great deal of time decommissioning old product-centric data warehouses and migrating them into a single place. on the cloud. So the reason we wanted to use that, to do that, is to use those very latest technologies, use the latest technologies in machine learning and in AI to provide that personalized service. But just as importantly, and often forgotten, is also making sure you get all of your customer data in the same place, and that data is trusted and it's available both to your internal customers and your external customers in a meaningful way. So I'll probably leave it there, Romain, but I've probably opened up a whole raft of other things as well.
Thank you very much, Richard. That was very concise, but one of the most powerful way I've seen cloud data security coming together as together basically to deliver what you want to achieve from a business ambition. And so from banking, now let's go to oil and gas. And a company is making a major business transformation there, driven by cloud, and that's Petronas, Adrian. I know from my own perspective, being involved in some of this cloud transformation and with your team over the past 3 years, can you maybe explain a little bit to the audience, what are you looking to achieve and how are you taking a modernization-led approach and what does it mean in practice?
Thanks, Romain, and it's a pleasure to see you again today here. To be fair, when we say transformation, it wasn't starting from a zero base. There have been usage of cloud before in Petronas, and there's been pockets of applications and businesses that were already on cloud. But we realized that we need to make this pervasive. We need to make, as Richard said, the core or central to that whole digital transformation journey that we wanted to do. So it all started, we called it a 2050 program where we wanted to migrate 20 applications in 50 days. Something small, something doable, just to exercise the muscle and to learn from that experience. Once we've achieved that, then the next step is to say that let's try to achieve the same thing, but now rather than just lift and shift migrate it, can we actually now re-platform and refactor it? And we achieved that with 15 applications. Now, based on those pilots or MVP, we called it, we had more confidence to really drive a group-wide transformation or migration initiative. And the goal is actually to have 90% or a large majority, about 90% of all our applications on public cloud by next year, 2022. So this is quite a aggressive timeline because we started this year actually, and it's done via a dual cloud strategy and with the help of partners such as yourself in the migration journey. And why we call it modernization and not just a migration, because like I mentioned before, rather than just a simple lift and shift, we want to unlock the real power of modernization through things like using containers, using platform as a service to really unlock value and drive more innovation and relook at the new use cases as well. So the easier way, perhaps even the faster way, is just to lift and shift. But we believe this is worthwhile to relook, modernize, and really extract value from this journey, Romain.
Good, thank you very much, Adrian. And we're gonna switch to a topic that is very important. Adrian, you talked about building the muscle with these initial migrations. It's important to do it with the migration program, but it's also very important on the people side. And so I'd like to talk a little bit about the people, culture, organization, and how bringing people along with you on the business transformation and the cloud journey is really a mandatory piece of this cloud continuum puzzle. So I'm going to turn to you, Richard, now. Being a diversified financial group, can you tell a little bit more our audience how you're taking your employees along in your transformation to be a leading digital bank? And how you're ensuring that you and your leadership stays engaged in that journey?
Sure. Thank you, Romain. I'm going to talk about a couple of things. I'm going to talk about purpose and ambition. So I mentioned enterprise agile and the way we operate. That was a really conscious decision. We knew we had to change the way we were operating as we migrated into these newer technologies. Why though? Why? It was a conscious decision because we wanted to move from what people would traditionally call a command and control structure to push decision making and empowerment as close to the feature teams, the agile feature teams, as we possibly could. And why would we do that? So I think it's all about purpose. So if a team understands their goal, their actual goal of their agile team, and they can understand the piece of work that they're doing and what it relates to in terms of a business strategy, I think that's incredibly powerful. That purpose and the clarity of the purpose allows a team to move to higher performance. So that purpose. I'm going to talk about ambition because technology, this is about technology. I think from a technology perspective, you have to be ambitious, and you of course have a business strategy, but you also need a technology strategy. And so from our perspective, we use something called engineering North Stars. Engineering North Stars. So they're very ambitious, they're very challenging, and their focus is to increase technology capability. They normally have a sort of a 2 to 3 year horizon. But the purpose of that is to create that ambition within the team, that they can know that they can use cloud, they know that they can use the tooling on cloud, that they can innovate, they can be agile. So we think that having that purpose and having that ambition are a potent mix. And that's the thing, they're the two things that we constantly push.
Thank you, Richard. I've been taking note myself, ambition and purpose, and we'll remember that. And I'm going to go back to the purpose again in a second. But first, I wanted to get Adrian's view and the angle on how Petronas is doing the upskilling and the reskilling of the people, and how significant it is as part of your strategy. And can you maybe describe to this audience why it is important and what kind of programs you're putting in place?
Yeah, so we are definitely investing and continue to invest, especially in capability and skill development, and not just in the realm of cloud per se, or even in digital, but more so retooling of the human capital is now a key strategy for the whole Petronas group. It is something that Petronas as an organization really believe in, because exactly as per your opening remark, Romain, what the last few years have taught us is things like agility and how we need to reinvent both companies and the people within it in order to meet this volatile and uncertain future. So in the realm of cloud itself, to be more specific, even before we've thought about that whole migration process or transformation process that I mentioned before, we've already embarked on what we call a cloud mastery program. And the whole idea is to upskill the core team to be able to comfortably be part of this journey. And the way that it's been done is we have certification pathways, we have committee of practices, and of course workshops and online courses for the groups to be able to partake in. And beyond that, last month we've actually also introduced our Petronas Digital Academy. And the idea now, rather than just upskilling and retooling the core group, we want to make this and democratize this digital skill to the whole of Petronas, and perhaps even beyond to universities and school leavers, so that we can also have more timber being grown to really supplement this digital journey that we're on. So I think those are two of the key digital journeys related to cloud, Romain.
Thank you, Adrian. And I'm going to stay with you for the next question. We heard Richard talking about purpose. And when I look at the Petronas strategy, purpose is a critical principle to get your people engaged. but cloud is also a tremendous catalyst in supporting your company's business strategy of sustainability. So as a follow-up question, I would like maybe for you to describe as Petronas' mission to be one of progressive companies of progressive energy and solution partner for the future, how migrating to the cloud is helping towards this mission.
If I may, I have to quote Richard a bit here. I guess cloud is not just about technology and cost. More importantly, it's really driving that culture of innovation, reducing the velocity and connecting the dots and creating better data and collaboration platforms. So I think as part of our goal to become more than just an energy company and to become a solution provider, the whole idea is to get the organization really thinking about the ability to understand pain points, look at customer requirements, customer demands, think of innovative solutions, and be able to deliver it. And be able to deliver it at pace and at scale. And I think that at pace and at scale and driving innovation, this is where we feel, like it or not, cloud is going to be such a central building block to that. Secondly, when we move to public cloud and we move from our brick and mortar kind of cloud, we believe on our second goal, which is reducing carbon and becoming a more energy efficient organization as well. That will also, not often it's been said, but we believe this is also going to have a positive effect in line with our goals and our Petronas sustainability aspiration to be net zero carbon emission by 2020.
Very good, Adrian. So I'll take your point you made earlier around people and more timber to be grown. It's figuratively used for the people, but it's also physically done through your decarbonization program. Thank you for sharing that. Now, maybe just going back to you, Sekido-san, and I want to just kind of set the scene a little bit for the next question. If you remember in Karthik's opening keynote, he talked about 2/3 of the surveyed executives not realizing the full value of their cloud transformation. And really the burning question I hear from senior executives I engage with very often is what business value has been achieved and what were the key to success. So I'd like to hear from you, Sekido-san, first. What are the key success factors and lessons learned that stand out to you when you talk to your client about their cloud journey?
Yes, Romain, very valid question. So I'd like to say the two things. So the first thing is defining the clear data strategy and then developing the new enterprise data model on cloud, which is how that's going to be support like a client business transformation or innovation. So that's going to be a key success factor for the successful cloud journey, or even like through the cloud journey, how they're going to achieve like business outcome. So that's I believe that. Because most of the business organizations sometimes struggling how their cloud technology or even with the convergence with other technology, even 5G, AI, or blockchain, could reinvent the business. So that kind of linkage, they're a bit struggling to figure out or articulate. But clear enterprise level data strategy and data model will answer this question, I believe. However, this time, we need to be kind of our open eyes, more wider, right, to talk about like data strategy or data model. Because the scope of the data is not only like traditional business transaction data. That also include some of the data which exchange with the ecosystem partner outside, or maybe the digital twin data of the physical product or facility. That's going to be captured through the edge cloud by 5G network. Or sometime we need to redefine the boundary between the system of the record and also the system of intelligence, maybe the new way. So we need to explore more, expand the kind of a scope, and then also the data. How can we utilize data for the business innovation? So that's one of the key point, is an important point. And the second point is actually, Edwin talk about the word is democratization. So I believe the democratization of the cloud technology for much more broader talent pool, it's going to be a key. Because when you look at the cloud technology, it's already very complex. Because each cloud player provide a lot of technology service or platform services. And also we have an open source, we have ISP. There are millions of the combination of the technology in the market already. And then it is impossible we can train our people or client people, everybody, to make a full stack engineer who understand all technology stack. It's impossible. So that's why we need to come up with the holistic approach, or even ranging from the delivery model transformation or talent model, and also asset strategy, to how we could democratize this kind of cloud technology, much more like a broader talent pool who can do the business innovation or application development more easy way. So that's, I think, is very critical success factor also on the cloud transformation. So these two is my point of view, the two key success factors.
Thank you, San. So the data model on cloud and the democratization for the wider enterprise. Thank you very much. And I'm going to turn to you, Richard, to ask a similar question. And maybe, so you talked about the journey pre-cloud started in 2014 with your ambition, where you're going and where you're expecting to be next year. Can you explain a little bit what value you've seen so far from the transformation, and if you had some of the top factors that have contributed to this success?
Yeah, thank you. So we're really pleased with our transformation journey, and we've seen significant growth in our three business areas of business banking, wealth management, and personal banking. None more so than in personal banking, where we've grown rapidly in Australia to become the 5th largest bank in Australia by mortgage book size. If I try and distill that down to what are the key factors, I think a key one for me is not only do you need great technology team and team members, but you need it operating in a frictionless way with the business. So part of my job as a CIO, a large part of my job as a CIO, is ensuring that our team understand the business strategy, they understand how the business operate, and that we can work seamlessly together. As soon as you have friction in that process, you start to get that disconnect between the business function and technology. I think the second thing is what cloud has given us, and don't underestimate this, is resilience. So what do customers really care about? I'm not sure whether they care a lot about the new features. What they want is that your application to work every time, all the time, when they want it. And cloud has allowed us to build huge resilience into our platform. So that's the second thing. I think the third thing is, you not only, when you're building your digital enabled processes, not only have they got to be incredibly fast and incredibly easy to use and incredibly resilient for our customers, but don't forget your internal customers. Our processes have to act in concert with our internal stakeholders as well as our real customers. So I think they would be the three.
Thank you very much, Richard. Very insightful again. Adrien, for you, the last one is a question. What advice would you give others that are looking to transform using cloud?
I guess we're also still on the journey. Hopefully, I'll give a better answer next year when we successfully do it, Roman. But I think just sharing what we've learned so far, I guess, three things at the top of my head. First thing is really buy-in and alignment from the businesses and all the key stakeholders within the organization. If cloud is seen just as an IT strategy or IT project or IT push, I feel that's the number one way that you're going to fail. It must be bought in. And I think the fact that cloud is is such a common term nowadays. A lot of people think they understand it. A lot of people think they know when they say cloud what they are actually referring to. But there is a large chance of people just talking past each other, thinking they're talking about the same thing. So really aligning on the goals, on the vision, on the strategy, and getting advocacy surrounding it is really critical. Secondly, invest in talents, invest in skills, invest in capability. If there's one thing to me, I feel that you can over-invest in, this is one area that you really want to over-invest in. The ROI, I advise you, will always be positive, no matter how you look at it. And the third one is security and cybersecurity framework, right? Moving into cloud also provides an opportunity for the cybersecurity to be enhanced as well. And it's also important to have that check and balance, because the more information and data you put online, on the cloud, we need to also mention we close off the back door and make sure that it's nice and tight and secure. So I think that's the 3 lessons that we're learning from our journey, Romain.
Thank you very much, Adrian. And some common themes as well with what we've heard as well from Richard. So great pieces of advice. So there are a few questions, as I mentioned when we started, that you can post, and some questions have come up. So we're going to take now a few minutes to answer some of these questions that have come from the audience. And I'm going to start with you, Adrian, with an initial question that came in around how do you see data and AI's role fueling organizations' growth agenda?
I think we've often heard in oil and gas, we say data is the new oil. We also believe analytics is the new refinery and insights are the new petroleum products, right? So definitely the ability to unlock data is super important. And I think the more in an industry, for example, like energy, where there's so many data points, we believe there's a lot of value that can still be unlocked just by connecting and really harnessing that power of data. On the conceptual level, it's pretty simple. Put in technology, IoTs, measure the data, put it in a common platform, put your data scientists to be able to analyze it, put dashboards for people to use it. Very simple. But as you know, democratizing data, unlocking data, making sure that the data is freed up, making sure that the data is clean, it's not easy. A lot of people want clean data. Not many people have the discipline to make sure it's done. So it really needs advocacy. It needs to have policy. It needs to have technology. It needs to have process. Once you put all that in, it becomes very complex, very fast. So lots of value for AI and data, but it's also a real challenge. And that's how I see it, Renee.
A lot of challenges and lots of opportunities, and I know that you fervent users of data analytics, and this combined with cloud can provide some exponential value to the company. And look forward to seeing what these results are and come up this event in a year time, and we'll talk about all of the great achievements that you've gone through. Sekido-san, I'm gonna go to you. There's another question that came in, and there's a little bit more succinct, but it's not because it's succinct that it's not complex. And the question is how to migrate mainframe to cloud. So I'm convinced that there is not a single kind of answer to this, but maybe you can tell us a little bit from your experience and the client that you deal with, what kind of approaches they've taken or considered.
Yeah, by the way, I could see the big wave of the modernization trend, right? Even like my country, Japan, right? So here, like we have still $13 billion mainframe service market. I mean, like most of the central government or banks or even like a telco or large manufacturing company, they're still using mainframe. But last 2 years, we could see a lot of momentum to how they're going to migrate or modernize the mainframe legacy system to the cloud. So, for example, recently, one of the insurance company, they run the closed book policy admin system on top of mainframe. But in order to optimize the cost, running costs, the rest of the product life cycle, they decided to move to the cloud. But the question is, we have a lot of options, like even like rehosting or rewriting or refactoring, a lot of options to modernize the mainframe or even to move to the cloud. But we really need to figure out what is the first business goal. Maybe just kind of a lift and shift in mainframe, mainframe application to cloud, just optimize the cost. That's one of the purpose. Or just after the migration, modernize, innovate, and then achieve some other business, innovation. So that's another goal, right? That's maybe a couple of options for like a purpose side. On the other hand, the technical complexity side, of course, when you look at the mainframe applications, so the application is really complicated. They haven't utilized like a standard online monitor. They have a custom built DB access module. So we cannot utilize like a code conversion technology to automate all migration or code decoding, right? So that side is another side we need to consider. So I think we combine the both sides of the factor and then can decide what is the best like approach for the modernization, even like a simple lift and shift rehosting or rewriting or refactoring, right? So we might have a couple of options, but these are kind of a key portion I think we need to discuss anyway when you talk about mainframe modernization.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Sekiro-san. Not an easy topic, and a lot of companies scratching their head on what is the best way to move to cloud when you have mainframes. Yes, indeed. I'm going to take one last question, and Richard, I'm going to direct this one to you specifically. It talks about regulated organizations. So the question is, what are the most successful approaches for migrating a large, complex, regulated organization to the cloud? Would you want to have a go at this one, Richard?
Sure. So Macquarie BFS is Australian domiciled only. So I only need to deal with a single regulator in the respective cloud. But if I think about that, what are the key things is allow plenty of time for that conversation to occur through your own organization. To make sure that everybody is comfortable with the security and the resilience and the obsolescence that you're going to see or not see in cloud, so you can be really, really clear on that journey. And then have those constant conversations with the regulator. I'm in the lucky position that the regulator is well versed in cloud and has indeed released its own papers in relation to cloud and cloud usage, so that they've allowed at least sort of a blueprint for moving to cloud. So I give plenty of time and lots of communication. If you just talking about that sort of overinvesting in that communication, so you can have conversations in good time. But our regulator has been fantastic throughout this journey, and we, as I say, we're going to be well on our way to being based on public cloud by the end of this financial year.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Richard, and thank you, Adrian and Sekiro-san as well. We're coming to a close now of our time together, and I hope you got some great idea, took some notes, and got some lessons learned that you'll get a chance to discuss with your team tomorrow. Now back to our cloud continuum, and when we look at the kind of key success, the first one being know where you want to go. I mean, it was clear here from where Richard, Adrian explained where the journey started and where they wanted to go, leading with purpose, leading with ambition, taking a modernization-led approach and not necessarily going with kind of a migration. It was very clear where they wanted to go, and they set on the journey with that. The second was about established cloud practices to augment your technologies. And here we've heard about the new operating models that needs to be put in play, taking care of your internal customer, putting in place, like, for example, enterprise agile with full DevOps as well from Richard. These are key cloud practices or pre-cloud practices in some ways that are required to really have a successful journey, and then accelerate innovation to deliver exceptional experiences. We've heard a few times about data and AI from Richard as well as Adrian, and from Sekito-san as well. Very important component. Really, there is no cloud strategy without a data strategy, and this is what will drive growth and innovation. And then keep committing to this strategy. I mean, it was clear here that the cloud is more than an IT project. It's really about a business project, and having, as Adrian mentioned, it keeping as an IT project will probably lead to failure. So it's very important to consider this as overall business endeavor. So thank you all for joining us today. We do appreciate your interest in this business transforming topic that is cloud. And you can ask further questions to the panelists right after the panels and to the presenters as well. Thank you again for joining. Enjoy the rest of the event. And remember, the more clouds you have in your sky, the more colorful your sunrise will be. Back to you, Simone.
Thank you, Romain and panel guests, for that discussion. As more and more companies around the world move to the cloud, it's heartening to know that we're all working together to improve the overall experience and business operations in this sphere. Plus, it was also great to hear how organizations in our part of the world are leveraging the power of cloud and other key technologies to grow and innovate. Earlier on, we heard from Karthik about the pain points or issues that organizations face in becoming a Continuum competitor. Now, let's understand some of the risk and security issues involved in moving business operations to the cloud. While cloud computing can help companies grow, modernize, and stay competitive, it can also expose them to new risks. It's important to put in place a cloud control framework that highlights risks, identifies regulatory expectations, and provides guidance on effective security and controls. For our next session, we have Christian Pedersen, Accenture's Risk Regulation and Compliance Lead in the growth markets, and Indrani Chandrasegaran, Applied Cybersecurity Services Lead for Accenture in Southeast Asia. Welcome Christian and Indrani from Accenture, who will help us understand the scope of potential risks and cloud security issues.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this session around risk and security threats in cloud. By way of quick introduction to the session and myself, my name is Christian Pedersen. I lead the risk and compliance businesses for Accenture across all markets outside North America and Europe. What we'll talk about here quickly over 20 minutes is why the risk management of cloud transitions is particularly important. Areas of focus, the frameworks that we have seen, our best clients deploy. And also then supported by Manish and Indrani, my two colleagues, Manish from Risk and Indrani from Security. We'll go through in depth a couple of those particular points on security and third-party risk management. And then I'll conclude. This is not a Q&A session, unfortunately, so we will conclude with some questions for you to reflect upon as leaders when you think about risk and security management of cloud transitions. And we have at the very end one particular question we'd like your input on via a very quick survey, just a simple question around where you see the biggest challenges lie for your institution. So without further ado, I will dive into that. As I mentioned, the session will be about 20 minutes long. So Sarah, next page, please. First of all, and speaking as someone who's been a risk practitioner for the best part of 20 years now, I think it's very rare that you get the chance to look at a risk problem that has such strategic, profound effects as this cloud transition risk do now. What we're seeing at the moment is through a number of requests, and these are coming in from boards, they're coming in from people leading cloud transitions, and they're coming in from risk functions. It's the fact that it's becoming quite essential to get a good handle early on cloud transition risks. Not just from a risk management perspective, from a strategic perspective. So clearly we want to reduce errors and we want to be evidence and control as we transition to cloud and we handle the issues that may arise as a result of that, particularly around giving comfort to board. So we have a lot of board requests for taking a look at what's happening inside programs and then what needs to be better resolved. Regulators here tends to be a guide that many people follow, but often that can lead to a great inefficiency in the programs themselves, which I'll talk a little bit about on the subsequent pages. Secondly, there's an agility question. So if everybody else is going to cloud, becoming more agile in the execution and thereby improving their customer services or back office cost functions, we need to get there too. And so in order to do that and be effective, we need to secure, as the program leaders, some way of getting timely sign-off for risk and compliance during the transformation work. So that we can onboard vendors, we can work seamlessly across technologies and maneuver complexity. And that requires an understanding of risks and security that is quite comprehensive and quite fluid within all parts of the organization, in particularly around the execution team who are leading the transition. And then finally, there's future proofing. This will have an endpoint. You will have transitioned to cloud in many parts of the business. What happens there in terms of repositioning the broader risk management function? Who owns this problem between CIO and CRO, where there is such a CRO, and who's going to be in charge of analyzing the risk framework and the risk culture shift that come on the back of a cloud transition. And of course, you want to avoid later surprises. So you want to have a dynamic framework put in place early that can accommodate future change as we see faster and faster evolution. So on data and technical risks, this is typically the area where we see institutions having most focus, particularly infrastructure. So I won't be spending a lot of time on that, but clearly there you need to make sure that you have suitably assessed everything around the risk of the particular infrastructure in question and its maturity. On data, in some industries, this is very heavily regulated, so it's very clear what needs to be done. In others, it's not, and I think it's important upfront to be very clear around areas such as data privacy, client consent, protection of data, before you embark on the entire program, given they can often add not only challenges downstream, regulatory-wise, but also to costs. However, what I think we will spend most time on in this session, because it has been the largest concern that we've seen from many of our clients, is around security. And for that, I'll hand over to Indrani to just talk on a couple of pages about that in more depth.
Thank you, Christian. Hello, everyone. So as you would have learned from the sessions, the panel sessions today, and with the fellow speakers, pandemic has definitely accelerated cloud adoption, with organizations making massive investments to grow the cloud infrastructure. But yet, most actually struggle with getting one thing done right, which is basically building the right amount of trust in cloud, right? And that's a pretty bold statement to make. Now, let's just take a quick look at the statistics that is being shared on the slide here. So in mid-2021, industry analyst IDC and a cloud security company, software company called Aromatic, actually surveyed about 200 US-based CISOs with a company size ranging between 1,500 employees to about 20,000 employees. And the results actually to try to understand what are some of their cloud strategies and their journey to cloud, an experience of journey to cloud. The results clearly brings out the truth, which is closer to the statement that I made earlier, about actually how almost every organization using the cloud infrastructure today is actually experiencing security failures. If you look at the statistics that you see on this slide here, nearly 100% reported having at least one cloud data breach in the past 18 months, with over 2/3 reporting 3 or more incidents, and again, over 2/3 with a high-risk data exposure in cloud. So the message is quite clear. As organizations embark on their journey to cloud, they are actually exposing themselves to more breach, and they will be falling prey to more security breaches as the cloud footprint begins to grow. Next slide, please. And the real challenge for that is, this is typically what you will look at in terms of building the right set of, security guardrails in cloud, or what you call, amount of trust that you need to actually build in cloud. And if you look at the capabilities that you see on this slide, there are about 8 capabilities. And I'm not going to go through each one of those questions. You would have probably asked yourself these questions. If it's not, your auditor would have already asked you these questions. There's 4 key takeaways that I want to summarize in this slide. Number 1 is, if you look across multi-cloud deployment and 8 capabilities across this multi-cloud deployment, one of the challenges that you will face is that there are too many security controls, which then makes security as a barrier to business. The second is too many security controls with very little automation, which also result in high likelihood of human error, which is the number one reason for security breach in the cloud, misconfiguration. The third is it will result in delays of service provisioning, because I think a lot of organizations have literally taken a lot of the data center practices to cloud, where services are provisioned in the same manner as they would in the data center environment, which is not the case in the cloud. So therefore, speed, which is the core value of cloud, not being realized, and again, security is seen as a blocker. And if you look across these capabilities, on an average, you would see about 15 to 30 security technologies that is actually being deployed across the cloud environments. And with that comes the challenge with too many vendors to manage. And you would have experienced the reason, or you would have read the news about the recent supply chain attacks, where you can then literally do your own maths on the risk aggregation and the cyber risk quantification around this topic. So the reality is there is a real challenge. The real challenge for the CISOs out there is really struggling to find the right balance of user productivity versus security. So we go back. So the question is, how do you then make security as an enabler to your business and build the right amount of trust in cloud? So we go back to where we started. It's all about understanding risks and quantifying risks across your multi-cloud environment. And it's not to be seen as a compliance exercise, but rather a business imperative to continuously assess and assure your business resilience. So in the security world, we call that assume breach by default. So with that, I thank you for your attention. I will hand it over back to Christian to take us through the next topic on business risk. Thank you, Christian.
Thank you very much, Indrani. So the third and final area is probably the area of least focus of cloud migration teams that we typically see. On the business continuity side, most institutions have got a traditional business continuity team, but they tend to be quite ill prepared for handling the continuity risks that we would see with a cloud transition, which requires a lot more deep technical expertise rather than primarily operational considerations. So there's a big area around security and cyber that Indrani touched upon here, but also just better understanding, better core technology skill sets linking into business continuity would be a real premium going forward. Similar for resilience. Now, what's happening in some of the more regulated industries, particularly in the financial services industry, seem to take the lead here, is an integration of compliance, operational risk, and some parts of operations in operational resilience, which is a broader topic that is being essentially elevated to ExCo on board in terms of attention, and that partly captures some of the cloud transition, other technology transitions that we see. But in general, institutions have got some sort of level of business resilience measurement, but very, very rarely a formal function that is able to capture what may be the impacts and the sort of appetites we need to have for business disruption due to technology change and ex post when we're in a new world, etc. So here again, there's a need for institutions to really think through both framework and organization for how that can be improved during the technology transition. And then finally, and I think one of the most important topics at the moment that we're seeing is around third-party risk management, where the need for third-party engagement is increasing rapidly. And for that, I'll turn over to Manish to talk us through some details there. Thank you, Manish.
Thanks, Christian. So the way to think about third-party risk here is from two dimensions, right? One, as we move a lot of our services to the cloud service provider themselves are third-party. But as organizations overall build their ecosystem and the ecosystem interacts with the services that sit on the cloud, then you also need to think about how do we migrate and transition that ecosystem to interact with some of your cloud services. And there we need to kind of think about two sets of asks. One is from a business risk perspective as to how do we manage the risk. And in various jurisdictions that you would be operating, there would be also a compliance overlay where regulators, for various reasons, across various requirements, would have spelled out multiple requirements, be it from an outsourcing lens or specific third-party risk management requirements, or requirements on how do you manage cross-border data transfer, how do you manage cybersecurity involving cloud services and third-party in general, and how do you think about data privacy? And as we have seen in certain jurisdictions, also increasingly about data sovereignty, correct? So if we think about these issues and how do we deal with it, then based on our experiences with our clients, we notice that there are certain common control challenges that come up again and again, right? One of them is business requirement and business case development. As you are moving away from your legacy IT infrastructure and moving to the cloud, the lot of risk and compliance assessment, the policy architecture, the control assessment, the frequency of it, the methodology of conducting those risk and compliance assessments seem to be still wedded to the old school of thinking. And that's where a lot of organizations have struggled in terms of, as we move to the new, how do we renew and refresh some of our policy architecture, right? And the control assessment. The other element to think about has been around pre-outsourcing analysis, considering that the complexity involved in terms of some of these choices of technology stack, the solution, the business process, the broader third-party ecosystem that an organization operates with. And also to the extent that these services require data to cross borders, right? There's also an element of ongoing risk assessment, which is part and parcel for most organizations. So this is something that most organizations have been able to get a handle on, depending upon how they approach the policy architecture. But a lot of emphasis has also gone into end-to-end planning, because that speaks very much to what Christian alluded to earlier in terms of overall speed and safety of delivery of some of these programs, right? As to how does, as an organization, we have a clear view on transitions and transition states and the toll gates and testing plans and so on and so forth, such that we can manage the risk and stay resilient. And a lot of regulators have also been requiring organizations to think about exit plans, not only under normal BAU situations, but also stressed exit plans. So in sum total, what we think is that organizations need to think about not only of the cloud services as a third-party service provider themselves, but also how various other third-party entities that they interact with in the ecosystem work with those cloud services, and how do we solve for business risks while also solving for the threshold questions from a compliance risk perspective, right? So I'll hand it over back to Christian. Thank you.
Thank you, Manish. And so having gone through those areas, and of course we offer the framework I mentioned, what I thought we would do is just to go through some core questions that we pose of our clients and when we interact, and also we find asked of us as we engage, for 2 pages, and then a final page, as I mentioned, just one survey question for yourselves to respond to online. So first of all, just looking at questions to see whether you are truly prepared in risk and security for cloud transition. As regards CISOs and their role, I think it's very obvious. Are we really equipped to handle the security threats? Indrani was pointing out that 98% experience, because are we really there? Have we appropriately ensured that not just current threats, but expected future threats, we really have got the walls in place to handle that? What about the linkage between security and broader risk types that come up? So fraud and risk mitigation around business continuity management. Here again, having siloed control frameworks is not helpful, either not from a cost perspective, nor from an efficiency perspective of managing risks. So do we really understand how security should feed into fraud, and how security should feed into BCM and other areas? And are we effectively collaborating between the CISO world and the Chief Risk Officer world to make that effective? And then finally, am I comfortable that the board and senior leaders understand the trade-offs that are happening between these strategic decisions to go to cloud, or more broadly transition technologically, and the security risk exposures? Not all CISOs have the voice that they necessarily need to have at the table when these decisions are made. So these are the key questions we would ask a CISO leader to ask themselves. On the CRO risk leadership side, I think is, do we actually understand how to compare the different risks we have during the technology risk transition and after we've gone to a new world after cloud? Can we size these risks and truly understand them and compare them? How about the role between CISO and CRO, playing a bit back to the questions in the CISO? I think we need to think about whether those roles are appropriately delineated, overlaps are managed, or are there any gaps needs to be properly filled? And then, of course, there's the adequacy. Here's a question that's being asked a lot by boards of risk professionals now, particularly in those companies and industries that are further down a cloud transition path, where maybe the original cloud transition has been gone for business reasons, cost reasons, efficiency. It's been decided, let's go. We need to, so we need to move forward. So can I adequately provide assurance to the board for this? Next page, please. On the CIO side and cloud transition lead, do I understand the major risks? Would be an obvious question here. And then how do we give comfort to the CISO and CRO to get timely approvals? And then finally, for the CEO and board, have we really optimized the cost risk return of the profile in the program? Do I get line of sight into progress and response with how they, and are they consistent with the regulatory items we have to explain? And finally, can I explain to outside agents, equity analysts, rating agency, and regulators everything about the program, including its risks and how we are handling them? So I wanted to leave you with these questions around whether or not the institution is prepared. And just on the final page, please, Sarah. So just as a final question here, we would like to ask you to kindly respond to the survey question you should be seeing in front of you now. Which of the following 6 areas is the biggest concern you have with your current cloud transition? Okay, and hopefully most people had time to press a choice there. So with that, and on behalf of the team, just wanted to thank you for the time, and we hope you found this informative. And of course, we're here if you want to ask further questions from us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Christian and Indrani, for helping us learn more about the potential risks and security issues with a cloud transformation journey. As we've heard throughout today's event, the pandemic has accelerated businesses' digital transformation journey with cloud, and it's a growing area of focus across the C-suite, beyond the traditional home of cloud within the IT function. Now let's round it up and hear more from the conversation led by Gianfranco Casati, Accenture's Chief Executive Officer in the growth markets, to dive deeper into the power of cloud and other technologies and how it can reinvent businesses.
Thank you, Simone, and hello, everyone. I'm delighted to be with you all today. In this next session, it's my great pleasure to be joined by Ravi Dabusi, who is the Global Head of Sales and Marketing at Rakuten Mobile. Welcome, Ravi, and congratulations for the recent announcement that is going to be a breakthrough in the entire telecommunication industry.
Good morning. Thank you, Gianfranco. Good to be with you.
Well, thank you for joining us. I bet it's a very busy moment for you. So we are very fortunate to learn from Rakuten Mobile today about the experience of taking bold steps actually in the cloud and the benefits that that can bring. So let me go to the first question, Ravi, right away. I would have asked about the opportunities that the Rakuten communication platform, say a cloud native platform on 5G, would bring to clients. But now with the recent announcement is more about sharing the secrets behind the success and the announcement itself. Over to you, Ravi.
Yeah, you know, it's very timely. The recent announcement is quite exciting. We're super enthused about the opportunity to do it yet again, this time in the heart of Europe, in a very quality sensitive nation, Germany, where we will be building for our partner 1&1 or 1&1, the 4th mobile operator of Germany, the next generation cloud native Open RAN based network. But I'll go back a little bit of the history of where we started. The reason we adopted cloud native and Open RAN for our network in Japan is because we were entering a market that is highly competitive, saturated by 3 incumbents, NTT Docomo, SoftBank, and KDDI. And we wanted to enter that market with a completely different cost structure to our network so we can compete on price, but also compete on services, agility, and immersive experiences that we offer to our customers. And 1&1 in Germany is really no different. They are currently an MVNO. They aspire to be the 4th MNO in the country, reduce their cost structure, have full control over their network, and really provide experiences and services that differentiate them. So we believe this trend will continue, Gianfranco, and I believe you and I speak to many operators around the world who are very, very keen on crossing that chasm. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when. We're very excited to turn our innovative solution, innovative approach, innovative architecture that we built in Japan into a business on its own by offering it and enabling the mobile operators of the future as they transition from 4G to 5G to adopt this cloud-native software-centric Open RAN-based architecture.
Ravi, thank you for sharing such a fantastic story. I have to say congratulations again for what you are achieving. And I'm really fascinated about listening the story, the success story of Rakuten for a number of reasons. We keep and we see actually in the market the 2 converging forces that are changing every single industry. On one end is the unprecedented computing capacity that cloud, 5G edge are bringing to bear. And the other one is the fact that online transactions, intelligent devices are generating millions of data every second. So the ability of process those data analytics, data science, artificial intelligence, combined with the computing power, are creating an unprecedented environment for new companies to come up, and Rakuten is a fantastic example of that, and for existing companies to rethink themselves. So I think you are playing at that convergence the best possible way. Does it resonate with you? Is this what you see, Ravi?
Gianfranco, it resonates so well. You're absolutely right. I'd like to go back in history a bit. We all remember the transition from a circuit switch to converged packet switch network for telco networks. We all remember in recent history the transformation of leveraging cloud and generic compute systems for most enterprise workloads. Definitely a little bit less complex than the telco environment. What we're seeing right now is another chasm that is being crossed by mobile operators around the world to leverage this enhancement in compute capabilities, network capabilities, and software capabilities that have come about in the last 5 to 7 years in the telco industry. Parallel to that is the transformation that happened with 3GPP on the standards of 4G and 5G with the adoption of Open RAN and software-based systems that provide a more open, more elastic environment for telco operators and rid them from the shackles of the traditional telco vendors who had dominated the world of their networks for many, many decades. So we see these dynamics playing out. But most importantly, as you alluded to earlier, is the operators are still feeling the pinch from both sides, the pinch from vendors and the exuberant cost that they get charged by the traditional vendors, but also the pinch from the over-the-top service providers that have continued to monetize their networks near for free, I would say. Things have changed in the last few years, but really still the over-the-top still enjoy a global platform of all the telcos around the world where they can reach their customers and offer services and monetize that network. So what we're seeing is mobile operators are looking at better profitability and lower cost structure for their network, but most importantly, the ability to be agile. Traditional telco networks have been designed and etched in stone. The way the reason I say etched in stone is when you design and dimension a telco network, you really dimension it to a capacity and a performance that is static. That does not work anymore. because the customer dynamics and the customer behavior is not static anymore. Especially in the last year and a half and 2 years, some of the most challenging time in modern history, I would say, with COVID and the pandemic, we see a completely different needs and different dynamics happening with the digital transformation of companies, the work behavior, and even the personal behavior in leveraging digital techniques, video conferencing, media and content, and tools that help us continue to live and continue to run with all these challenging environments that we're facing. So the telco networks of the past will not serve us in the future. And that's why we feel so passionate about the architecture that we have put together, where it is elastic, it is self-serving, it is automated, it is orchestrated, where the needs for thousands of people, thousands of eyes and hands managing, monitoring, troubleshooting the network cannot be the solution anymore. So our architecture serve the needs of the mobile opcos of the future, both greenfield and brownfield, I would say. And in the next 3 to 5 years, we'll see that happen as the transition from 4G to 5G takes place. And I believe the new breed of telco operators with this new cost structure and this new elasticity and automation in their network will have to become supreme. The old telco model of building networks and running businesses on the traditional methodologies will simply not work for them in the next few years as we transition towards a more immersive and more more rich experience for our customers and constituents.
That's fantastic. I realize that we're coming close to the end of our chat, Ravi, but there is one question that I really need to ask you, because innovators seems to do many things very well. And one of these things is their ability to deal with talent. So the question to you is, Rakuten being such a successful innovator, when it comes to talent, how you galvanize, motivate, transform the culture? Because even Rakuten being a new company, a relatively new company, you've changed the nature of the company itself many times already. So how you do that? Share us some secrets.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, the legacy and history of Rakuten comes from an internet-facing digital business, e-commerce, fintech, media, content. So when we embarked on this journey in telecom and adopted this cloud-native, Open RAN, software-centric approach to our network, we realized immediately we needed the marriage of both the knowledge of the telco technologies of the past, but also a deep understanding of cloud and software. And we adopted a model where we have a unified organizational structure where we don't separate the network organization from the IT organization. We don't separate the understanding of cloud and software from the understanding of proper telco network dimensioning and sizing and tuning and optimizing and hardening. So our challenge was to try and combine the talents of the future in cloud and software and automation with the experience of the past of building reliable and stable and effective telco networks. I know it's easy said than done. We did face a lot of challenges, but that was the key for us, Gianfranco, and it was really important for us to have the partnerships that enable us to launch ourselves into this journey where we could leverage and infuse the knowledge of cloud, the knowledge of software, the knowledge of AI and automation into the traditional knowledge of how to build a mobile network. Because at the end of the day, you still have to set up towers and set up the antennas on those towers. So a lot of things did not change still, but many things have changed. And we evolved our org structure and talent capabilities accordingly.
Well, thank you very much, Rabi, for sharing your experience and insights. It was actually wonderful to hear how your cloud native mobile network can quickly scale and be successful the way you described, and support the many opportunities that 5G actually enables. So as Rabi shared, well, the Rakuten mobile story clearly demonstrates the cloud is paving the way for the dynamic continuum of capabilities that you have heard about many times today. Thank you again for participating, and thank you, Rabi, and congratulations again for the success of Rakuten. Thank you.
Thank you, Gianfranco. Take care. Talk soon.
Thank you, Gianfranco. That definitely gave us some further insights to bring home from our event today. One thing is clear, companies need to look beyond migration to the cloud and really leverage the power of cloud as a foundation for innovating and transforming to generate new business value. The time for change is now. It's time to bring your vision to value. The future of business in cloud starts here. A big thank you to everyone for joining us today. We hope you had an enjoyable and fruitful time with us. Do stay safe and well, and we will see you next time.